Brett Perigo, tonight's second place finisher. Plenty of fans here, Brett, and a solid second place finish.
Yeah, I got to shout out the Turn2Terribles over there. They're all a bunch of good guys to hang out with, talk to. I really like them.
How are you doing tonight, man?
Hey, I'm talking here. You know who you're talking to? Macho Man! I'm on my way to Monday Night Raw.
To the second one.
Your choice.
It's a trap.
I feel like it is. I feel like he's setting up fights in the front stretch is what he's trying to do.
Speedway. We've got Devin Board with us.
At Keen Motorsports Shop here with Kyle Keen.
Sitting here with Sean Keen. We're going to talk a little bit about racing history.
Yep. What's up? Monday, February 12th, 2024. We are the Turn2Terribles. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. If you're listening the next day, thank you for checking us out. We got a great show tonight, like always, but we're hyped for this one. We're bringing back a previous guest, one of our good friends, Kyle Keen. Excited to talk to him about what he's got going on. And then we'll also talk a little bit about the World of Outlaws at Volusia last week and as what's going on as we speak right now, the High Limit season debut down at East Bay. So, yeah, guys, how you guys doing?
Great, man. Great. Just happy to be here, ready to get this thing on the road, talk to Kyle a little bit. It feels like race season, man. We are getting there.
We're there.
Even though there's winter storm mornings in Pennsylvania, it still feels like race season. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
We will get there.
We're gonna get a foot of snow tomorrow, maybe, but
you are.
We're still me, but we're gonna be racing here soon enough, and then watching sprint cars right now. It's getting me hyped. It's getting me hyped. So, Bradley Weatherby, what's going on, man? Thanks for tuning in. Glad to see you here. So let's bring in our guest. Welcome back, Kyle Keen. Kyle, thanks for joining us, man.
Good evening, gents. Good to see you again. Glad to be back on.
What's up, buddy? What's up, man?
Does this make Kyle like the most often guest on T2T? Like,
yeah,
this is what, the third or the fourth time?
Does 2 make you frequent?
2.
For us,
and we did the shop tour.
Oh yeah, you're pretty much featured everywhere. So
yeah.
you're
in the intro video.
I'm down with it.
One of us.
I'm glad that you guys make me feel important.
We appreciate you coming in late notice. A lot of people in Florida, a lot of people traveling. A lot of things going on this time of the year. So we kind of have next week ready to go, we think. So at the same time, I think we actually had the same trouble last year around this time with people kind of being out of town. We had some ideas. We weren't sure if they were down there or not. But either way. So I got the Racing Extravaganza live 2 weeks ago, almost 2 weeks ago now, or last week. Yeah, right. Yeah, 100%.
Love you, Ant.
Got to sit and watch your interview with Dave Hare on that roundtable up front there, and there was a lot of cool topics you brought up, and that Dave got to ask you, and probably more time would have talked a little more. So, your racing journey again, that Keen name carries some weight in Central Pennsylvania. And listen, I'm sure you're tired of hearing it, but at the same time, it's pretty cool, right? You want to make a name for yourself. You're out there now. You're racing. But I believe that carries some like familiarity. People go, Keen, wonder if that's the same guy, right? So, and then you bring out the schemes that kind of are relatable to that. What I think a lot of people don't realize is that you didn't race anything until you jumped in a 305 your
Correct.
entire life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing. So, and you and I have talked a lot about this, obviously off the podcast, and we're pretty close. But I know that you set pretty high expectations for yourself. Everyone should. If you're a competitor in anything, you want to do that. How do you balance that okay, I've never raced anything until 305, feeling like you've now been racing 4, 5, 6 years, but at the same time, some kids are 11 by the time they do that. Okay. You're a grown ass adult with responsibilities in life and jobs and money comes into play and you're doing sponsors and all that. How do you balance that? I want to go out there and win every time I put a helmet on with here's where I am in my career behind the wheel. How do you balance that in your own head?
It's hard, right? Because like going back to the Dave Hare thing, like you talked about, like when we were up there and JJ Loss is like, hey, I'm 18 years old and I've been racing or 16 years old, whatever it was. He was like, I've been racing for 11 years. I'm like, really? You know what I mean? Like here I am, like, I'm 29 years old and I've been racing for 4 years, going into my 5th year. And it's been sporadic as far as the amount of racing I've done. So like, I always have like super high expectations of myself, no matter what I get myself into, whether it's racing, career, previously it was athletics. I expect the best, and I set myself an extremely high bar. And it's hard to live with myself sometimes because like, Jeremy, I've talked about this. Like, I want to be here, right? Like, you see guys like that we were sitting at the round table with, like Kyle Reinhardt. He's been through the ringer as far as like 410 sprint car racing is concerned. He's been in it a long time. He's got a lot of races under his belt. And he's finally starting to get himself over the hill where he's a consistent top 5 guy, right? And like, I want to be there. Like, I expect myself to be there, but we all know that takes time. I know it takes time. Like my team knows it takes time, but when you're in the moment, it's hard for you to like say, hey, like you need to settle down. No, you need laps, and like this thing will come. It just, everybody's different. Like, some guys take 10 years to mature at the 410 level. Some guys take 3 years. It's totally dependent on the person and the amount of experience that they have. And not even, and like you could race go-karts and come through the 305s, 358s and get into 410s and have all the experience in the world, and it still takes time. So like, knowing that, it's still hard for me to not want to win every race because that's what I expect to do when I show up. I don't spend the money and commit all this time to not want to win every week. But that's just who I am as a person.
Well, and I think it's competition. At the end of the day, it's competition, and you're only as hard. You're going to be harder on yourself than anybody else will be harder on you. For like, if I'm looking at it from the outside in as expectations for me, I don't expect Kyle Keen to go win every race he jumps in. You should, and because if you didn't, you shouldn't be racing. Right. But also knowing like, hey, you're at some of the top levels of the sport around here in 305s and 358s. The fields don't get any easier, and you started in one of the most competitive fields, right? And it doesn't get easier as you go with the mixed level of experience and youth and, whatever the case may be. So speaking of time, what has your off season been like? Because, like I said, I know obviously we're close, and I know you kind of started a new gig at work and you put a lot of time and effort into that. How has it been managing it this off season with some of the things you have going in the car, which we're going to get to here in a minute, as far as your plans this year? How have you been able to balance that this winter? Did you just sort of disappear and take a break for a while and let some things in the background happen? Or were you in the shop? How did that work this winter?
It's been, it's been interesting. Like, I know I've been a little quiet, and like, you and I have talked about this at Racing Extravaganza, like how quiet I've been. even between like my personal friends, like you guys, like iRacing, like all that stuff that I normally do, it's like I felt like it's been an abnormal off season for me, mainly just because of work and like, you know, wanting to get the things done that I want to get done this off season. So like, we added a couple new crew members this off season that were I feel like a huge addition for my program, from a maintenance standpoint, from a car building standpoint. Kind of turned our motor program around a little bit, you know, did some things a little different this off season, to try to find something different for us that you know, we kind of sort of found towards the end of last season. And just been like working on what I want out of my team. You know, what do we got to do to get things done, to get to the level that I want to be at? And it's been a lot of like, a lot of back and forth between my dad and I and our crew guys on like what we need, like what we're going to build. And just a lot of building, going into this season. We probably have the most equipment that I've ever had in my racing career, in a good way. Like, you know, everybody talks about like lack of motors, lack of equipment, like you're limited to so many races you can do based on what you have. That's kind of been the case for us. Like, you know, I've only had one 358 motor for the past 2 years. You know, I had 2 305 motors at one point, but that's kind of unnecessary in 305s unless you blow one up. So, you know, this year we're going into the year with 2 motors. You know, everybody saw which one that I had at the show. And in my 358 that we have, we're going to be putting in the car tomorrow night. So I don't want to say a quiet off season, just concentrated. If that makes sense. Like, you know, we, instead of like being like, hey guys, like I want to win next year. It's like, let's not talk about it. Let's do it. Like, I'm tired of like, hey, you know, it sounds good to want to win, but then winning is different. Like, to build the program to where you want to be to win is different than just talking about it. And instead of talking about it, I just decided that we're gonna take an opportunity to just do it.
Yeah, and you know, you said kind of going into the season, and I feel like following you along each season, you've built more and more and more, and I think if you're going backwards, it's probably a problem unless you know it's either lack of commitment, lack of funding, or lack of parts potentially. You know, you want the stuff, but you can't get it. But building up to that, and listen, the second half of last season was pretty rough. You tore up some equipment. You know, that one at Williams Grove was such a weird deal, right? We're lining up for a heat, and it just boom, it's destroyed in a sense. So tearing up equipment, but then going into 2024 with an improved program and even more parts. What are your expectations? Let's talk about the 358 first. The kind of the schedule that you're going to run, definitely Williams Grove schedule. You're comfortable there. You've talked about that. Maybe a sporadic Lincoln show here or there. What are your expectations at Williams Grove this year? Have you kind of sat down and thought about that, saying we are planning on running every race in 358 there? Have you sat down with some expectations, whether it's broad or very specific?
I don't know if there's necessarily like a points like expectation at the end of the year. I hate saying I'm racing for points because like I don't know if I ever will be or not. Like, there's so many variables that make that like different week to week. So like, you know, I don't have 358 motors to say, hey, I'm racing for points at Williams Grove this year. I got one, and sure, we're going to give it our best shot. But if something happens and we got to transition to, you know, the aluminum side of things, then that's what we'll have to do. But you know, as far as the concentration on 358 stuff, I think based on what was trending towards the end of last year, as far as speed, I feel like I need to be racing in the top 5 consistently this upcoming year. Not necessarily winning every race, but I feel like I have the equipment and the program and the team behind me to accomplish that this year. I'd like to finally knock down that first win. Like, that's what we're all shooting for right now. You know, it's like once you get that out of the way, it's like, okay, let's concentrate on what we want to do next. Like, what's our next goal? My first goal right now is to knock down that win at the Williams Grove. Like, that's what I want to do. You know, there's really, based on like my career at Williams Grove in a 358, I feel like has been good, even though it's been bad. Like, you know, we completely tore up a race car on a freak thing, like at middle of the last year. And like I had a steering gear break at my first year in a 358 that plowed the wall with. But outside of that, like we haven't really been outside the top 10 at Williams Grove a whole lot. Like there's a couple nights, but like we've been racing in the top 10 almost every night that I've been there since I started in 358. So like my expectation is like, hey, we need to be there every night. And that's where I see myself in 358.
Yeah, I agree. I think you've had the speed, right? I think it's been a little more consistent at Williams Grove, even if you end up having, some bigger incidents type stuff happen. I think you've shown to me, which sounds crazy with the motor program you're talking about and the motor it takes on at Williams Grove. I think you've shown more consistent speed than at Lincoln. I just think that's your comfortability there. Another thing before we move on to the next thing in my mind was in the off season, there was something else that you made a drastic change and improvement in the off season. Let's talk about your trailer a little bit, because the first year you got this trailer, I believe it was this one. I was at the shop and doing a little bit of interior work, and you guys really rebuilt the interior of this thing. And it's beautiful. You open the gate, look inside, beautiful trailer. You guys did a great job. But when you close that up and it's rolling down the road, Jimmy, do you have the before and after? So if anybody saw Kyle Keen rolling through Williams Grove, Port Royal, Steelens Grove, wherever he raced Lincoln the last couple of years, this is what you saw. So he got this trailer from Ashley.
There it is.
I don't even know who that is at this point. This is what was rolling up and down the road. And I chuckled every time I saw it. Like, I appreciated what you guys did. Like, you got this on a budget. The stuff inside is way more important than the stuff outside. But let's show the after. This is what will be rolling into the racetrack this year. Look at that thing, man. It's like a brand new trailer.
Beautiful, beautiful.
So tell me how the hell you got to wrap off of that thing. Like, were you there, or did you drop it off and have someone done?
So, long story short, one of our sponsors, Shetron Trailers, Terry Shetron, we dropped it off at his shop and said, like, dude, we need this thing fixed. Like, we can't. So to make a long story short, like, my dad and I laughed a little bit because we're like, hey, I don't know if I have the energy to try to rip the vinyl off this thing. Like, it was the stuff was on there since 2003. And like, it didn't matter what kind of acid or like any kind of material, anything you put on that thing, it just didn't want to come off. And if it did, it was like super slow. Like, it was going to take like a month of Sundays to get it done.
Yeah, 100%.
And so we dropped it off at Terry Shetron's, and him and his guys did a beautiful job, and they repaneled the exterior they put all new white paneling on, all new seamless white paneling. So that's kind of what we went with. We kind of felt like that's what made sense. It didn't make the outside look like total crap. It made us maybe look a little bit less like Ashley Parlett and a little bit more like Key Motorsports. So that was a big thing, that my dad did this year. Like, he owns a trailer, and when Terry said he'd help us out with the trailer, it's kind of like a no-brainer. Like, dude, we just got to get it done. Like, if we want to look professional, we just got to do it. So
the other thing, go ahead,
I just still go back to when we were at the shop. The best idea Sean had was putting Kyle's face on the trailer, and that should still happen. That should be take Ashley's face off.
I wish I had the beam picture.
That would be epic.
Great.
That would be epic. Key Motorsports is just you smiling on the back
So,
door.
my next question would have been,
yeah,
was I the first transgender driver on the side of a trailer?
had to be.
Just throwing it out there.
Just putting it out there.
Gets to compete in the powder puff race at Bath. So the other big thing, and we kind of led in with the picture of the car. Jimmy, if you can put the picture of the car up, I want to talk about the scheme a little bit this year. It's very much the same as last year. The big change is that number. I didn't know. You showed me a picture of this. I wasn't sure about it. We can't wait to see it at night. I love the white outline. But when I saw it in person, man, does it pop. Where did that idea come from? Was that your idea? Or did you kind of get together with your designer on that, or where did the number change come from?
So this became a very unpopular executive decision on my part within our team, mainly my dad. He did not like the black number, and I liked it. I shot you a picture, Jeremy, of what it looked like, and you're kind of on board with it. The same thing like I talked about, like, hey, like what's it going to look like at night? I hated taking my grandfather out of the number because like that's kind of what was part of the scheme, right? Like, the remembrance of him. And I felt like we did do that last year. Like I felt like I accomplished what I set out to do. So I felt like it was time to like maybe take a step forward and move on and create my own chapter. Not without forgetting what my grandpa set as far as like what our team is. So like it was like kind of like keep the scheme but change the number. Dad came up with the white frame. I was skeptical, but he was like, let's do it. I was like, cool. So I think between the number and the white frame, it really made that car pop more than I thought it would. And there you go. Like I was not that number didn't look bad last year, but like I felt like it got hard to see. So hey, Billy. So
sorry, hit the wrong one.
It's all good. So that's kind of like I just wanted to change. I'm not saying we're going to run this scheme forever either, but just wanted to mix it up. And I kind of shot some ideas over to Brett Clark at To Be Wrapped, and we kind of came together on the black number and after some back and forth. So pretty excited with the way that turned out.
Yeah, I think it looks good. I like the sharpness of it, the black, the red, the white. I think it does go well, and I actually do think it's going to show up pretty well at night. With the white and the red outline, I think it'll do well. So I guess we'll find out soon enough.
Sure.
Where do you plan to open the season? First, let's talk about the first race. What is your planned first race?
The planned first race is with the 358 at the sprint car opener at BAPS. I think that's March 29th, if I remember right. Something around that time frame. That's our first determined race, and then we're kind of just going to take it from there. Got it.
Now, the big thing that you talked about in the off season, it's made its way around. So you have a 410 now, and it's kind of a weird season, right? Because it's not a weird season. It's weird because I've known you for a long time now. It's going to be different for you. You didn't really dabble in a 358 when you had a 305. You didn't really dabble, whatever. So there's a lot of guys doing this now where they'll have their 358, they would get a 410, good, bad, or whatever, and they just kind of sprinkle in some shows here and there. Is that kind of your plan at this point, and pick and choosing a little bit on 358 off weekends? And like, how do you want to approach the 410 seat time?
Honestly, we have one 410 motor. We got one 358 motor. So obviously the idea is to maximize seat time. I would like to eventually make a transition into what I feel like I want to do full-time, not, full-time on the weekends moving forward, which is the 410. Obviously that's everybody's goal, right? So right now for this year, the goal is going to be seat time. So if knowing that I have a 358 and a 410, we're going to race the guts out of 358 Williams Grove, and then we're going to get, if a rebuild is 18 to 20 races in the 410, we're going to get a rebuild out of the 410. And if we get to July and we're at a rebuild, we're going to get a rebuild and keep racing. That's kind of, we're limited on one motor. That's the issue with the 410. Obviously, we'd like to work on getting a second one at some point, but I don't want to jump in to the deep end too early. I want to make sure that I'm establishing myself in a 358, and it's kind of like counterintuitive because the goal is to get fast in a 410. And I was kind of inspired this past year and a half from a couple guys that I raced with, Cameron Smith obviously hopped in and did really well. I raced with him, we on at Lincoln a couple times, him and I raced really well together. Our buddy Brett Strickler, seeing Chris Frank hop in one and do pretty well, especially Clinton County, Kyle Spence, and obviously a lot of these, Cody Hartlob did really well. Obviously it's different for those guys because they've raced a lot longer than me. So who knows where that leads me, but knowing that I can race with those guys in a 358 inspires me to think that I can do what they're doing in a 410 this coming year. And obviously I know there's a learning point, right? It's you're in the premier division of sprint car racing and dirt track racing outside of, top tier late models and World of Outlaws. It's like this is it. So like we know walking into this thing what we're getting into. We did it before. We did it in the 80s. We did it with my dad. We did it with my grandpa. We're doing it now. Like we know that there's ass kickings coming consistently for like the next 5 years. But but that's where we want to be, right? Like not that we don't want to be in the 358s. The 358s is a great division and ridiculously competitive. But the goal as far as what makes financial sense in this area is 410s. So that's where we want to be. And this year it's just going to be like, hey, let's ease into it a little bit. Let's see what I got. Let's see how I'm feeling. And just kind of go from there. We're not promising we're going to be here every week or here or there every week. It's going to be, hey, this is how I feel. And let's keep working at it. And, I get kind of jealous sometimes. Like, I'd love to race 60 races this year. That's the only way I'm going to get faster. It's not possible right now, but we're going to give it a heck of a go for what we got.
Did some of the, obviously the shortages with some of the parts for the 358s and all that, and just you said about it making more financial sense. Did that make it more of a decision to do this a little bit earlier than you hoped?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. Like we wanted a second motor. I've been wanting a second motor to go racing with. I didn't know what that was going to be. I think I talked to Jeremy about this my rookie year of 358. Like, we're like, hey, we want to get a second motor, but what makes the most sense in this area? If you don't want to be limited to 2 tracks, what makes the most sense? Well, you can either go 305s or you can go 410s. And I felt like for the cost of what we had in a 358, it made more sense to buy a 410 for close to the same price range and more starting money. So that's kind of what led us to that decision. It wasn't a knock on the 358 division. It was more of just like a financial decision. Like, hey, we can go up to Selinsgrove and start for $750. Mm-hmm. You got to finish second at Lincoln to do that.
Right. So is that how your schedule is going to look then? Like you're going to go hopefully with the 410 to places kind of off grid, like Clinton County, I guess would be an example that I would have. Would you go to a place like that on those off weekends where it's the field's not your Danny Dietrichs, your Brent Marks, those guys, it's everyone else?
Yeah. No, the goal is to not race any of the big races, like especially right away. Like I want to get comfortable and get seat time and not be a danger to myself or any other guys around me. So we're going to start kind of light, like just do the normal weekly shows at like Williams Grove. I'm not, and you guys know this, I'm not much of a small track guy. I can't seem to figure out the small truck stuff at the moment. I don't know what it is. I'm not a chop it at the wheel kind of guy. And you kind of need to be to race at those racetracks. I'm just not there yet. Not saying, we're going to keep trying. That's the only way you're going to get better is just keep racing it. But, I think we're going to concentrate on the places I'm comfortable with for now until I get adjusted to the speed, adjust the way the car reacts to the air. That's a lot of big things that guys have told me. Buddies have told me from going from 350 to 410 is just the way the air affects the car. And apparently they drive easier than 358. So we'll see what happens.
I think it's a kind of a transition year because it feels like a lot of the top 410 drivers, and we talked about this a little bit with Troy in the first episode, where it's kind of like you kind of have a group of the PA posse 410 guys kind of going out a little more nationally. It's kind of leaving a little bit of room, and you kind of have this new regime kind of coming in, like yourself, Cody, Chris Frank, Brett Strickler, that kind of like a group. Do you think that gives you a little bit more confidence since you're going to have more people that you raced against before? I know you kind of already said that, but that'll make this transition a little bit more easier.
I think now's the time to do it. Honestly, I know like there's some stuff been said like, Jeremy Elliott has mentioned that before. Like, if you're gonna do anything 410 related, now's the time because the big boys are out playing with like the high limit and the new things. So I think that opens some doors locally, and I agree. I do think that if you're going to make the jump, this year or the next coming couple years is probably the best time to do it. Some of the big guys are going to be away, and it's going to give you an opportunity to get laps, which is, as everybody knows, is super important in that division. So, yeah, I agree. I think now's a good time. Whether we're ready for it or not, we're just going to make ourselves ready.
It feels a little bit like changing of the guard happening right now in 410 ranks. There was a wave. If we kind of look at the last wave when like Fred was retiring and Keith Kaufman and some of those guys, there was a group of veterans, right? There was a group of them, and it was a scattering over 4 or 5 years. They kind of did their retirement thing, kind of went off on their own, or went off into the mist and started helping their kids or whatever the case may be. It feels like right now, other than Lance Deweese, of top tier winning veteran guys. Like it's Lance and it's Danny.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Right.
it's weird calling Danny the old guy in the division, but how many other guys are Logan Wagner? He's not even old, but like been around winning. Otherwise they're traveling. Anthony's going to travel.
Yeah.
Brent's obviously traveling. You look at some of those guys. There's some changing of the guard happening right now. And listen, the posse needs this young talent. So we talked about Cody Hartlaw, Troy Wagaman, Logan Rumsey's, right? I don't know if Cody Fletcher, I've seen him scattering of 410 races. Like, I don't know what his plan is. But there is an opportunity right now, like especially like at Williams Grove.
Yep.
The average car count's 20, 21 cars for the whole season. You can go out there, get seat time, get decent start money, get the laps, and have a good night. You're not going to show up when there's 30 and 40 cars there. At Lincoln, they average 32 cars or 30 cars a night. Like, that's hard to go and say, well, I'm going to go get seat time in Lincoln and never make a feature.
Right.
Yeah, you run a B, but how much do you learn over time? So, I think Williams Grove, there's opportunity. Port Royal is a challenge in a 410. You just kind of never know. They typically have full fields. But listen, somebody had trouble, you're in the show, right? Even if you don't pass a car, you just get lapped. So, you never know. So I think there is a good opportunity. I agree with you. I think it's not getting cheaper. That's number one. So it'll never be cheaper than it is right now. And I don't even want to say the word cheap because it ain't freaking cheap. And we all know that. It'll never be cheaper than it is today, right? Next year's going to be something else and so on. So, no, I agree for sure. If you're in the position to be able to do it, you have enough help, sponsorship, and your program is there, why not, right? I'm in the why not mode. So switching gears a little bit. So one of the talk has been this very recent. I don't know if anything else came out of it yet or if there's been announcements, but Wicker Bills and 410 racing. What are your thoughts in general? What are your thoughts about it? Do you agree if they get rid of it? Would you rather see kept? Give me some feedback. What do you think?
I'm mixed on that. Like I can't give a 410 driver's perspective opinion on what that does to the race car. I was actually just talking to Billy Dietrich about this the other day. I was down there at RUPW, and I don't know. I don't know if a Wicker Bill change is enough to make the racing better. I think it is the most economical way to try to change it because, I mean, top wings come standard with a 1-inch Wicker Bill. That's how you buy them. So I guess it's kind of be like a wait and see thing. Like obviously they're trying to unhook the cars with the tires. Like the tires are getting a little bit different. They're trying to unhook the cars with the top wing. I don't know if I'm totally bought in yet. I think it's going to take more of a drastic change than just a piece of aluminum. So I'm kind of at a wait and see.
Well, do you think that the combination of the tire coming in, when everybody's kind of talked about on a non-heavy track, the slicked off a little bit track, it is more unhooked, the stiffer right rear, the softer left rear, sidewall wise. But do you think it's another step in a small evolution to get there with multiple things happening? Or like, I think on its own, I agree with you. I don't know if it solves what they're trying to do, but this, to me, it hasn't really been a huge talk of like, we got to unhook these cars.
Right.
Why do you think this is happening now? Like you hear in NASCAR, okay, so NASCAR level, everybody, if you watch any NASCAR, it's air, air, air. How do we get the air to the car behind? How do we get better racing? NASCAR just said, we'll just take all the power away and there'll be pack racing everywhere. Well, that sucks. It's garbage. It's garbage quality content. It ain't racing. In a 410 world, I didn't hear this big chatter from the powers that be about unhooking these cars. Where does this come from? Like, where do you think it's come from?
I think it's a competition thing. Like, I don't know if it's coming from the teams. I don't know where it's coming. Like, I don't know if it's coming from the tracks. There's been fan complaints. I'm not sure. Like, obviously, drivers aren't huge fans of unhooking the cars. I mean, it makes us not feel good. Like, and what we do all night is try to make ourselves feel good. So, like, I don't know. It's a good question. Like, I'm not sure where that stems from. I think it's a good idea because it brings the driver back into the picture. Like the old tire, like I noticed a big difference, like on the exit of the corner between the old tire and the new tire. Like the old tire was a lot more hooked up. That I think makes a difference. There needs to be, I don't know what more needs to be done, but like I think they are trending in the right direction. Like I'm not a performance engineer, but there obviously more can be done to help the racing. It's hard. Like it's hard in PA because you're not racing on small tracks like they're racing on East Bay tonight. A lot of your tracks in Pennsylvania are half miles. Like you got Babson Lincoln, and then you got Clinton County that are the small tracks. But like, what are the big races that they're at half miles around here? Williams Grove, National Open, and you got Port Royal, Steelens Grove, and then you get Lincoln Splash shows. So like, I think the half miles, as much as I love racing them, I don't think they help the racing. That's part of it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that because I'm a half mile guy. I love the speed. I love having more track available to me than not enough. Because if there's guys that I don't feel comfortable racing around, I know I got room to get around them. That's the way I see it as far as sizes.
Another topic that's come up recently, people just in passing and talking, people have said to me about having tire options, whether it's another manufacturer option or compound. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm mixed because, we talk about how, and this is going to be an unpopular comment, but I don't really care.
We're here for it.
We talk about how competition is going to bring better price competition in racing, right? Like tire competition. I disagree. And here's why. Because let's say you have 3 different manufacturing brands and they all make different compounds. So you go to an outlaw race and there's some fast guys on an American Racer. There's some guys that are fast on a Hoosier. There's some guys that are fast on, Goodyear. I know they're not coming back in, but, just saying. Well, now you're buying Goodyears. Now you're buying Hoosiers. And now you're buying American Racer to try to figure out. So now all of a sudden you got all these tires and all these different tire brands and I'm not saying that having one company make all your tires is the answer. That's a tough thing because you're kind of like, okay, price versus performance. Like, obviously we all agree that we're paying too much money for a terrible tire. We all can agree on that. We all do it every weekend. But I think you have to be careful what you wish for when it comes to that thing, because now the big teams versus the small teams is going to be larger. Now you're going to have big teams that have 15 rims with Hoosiers on them, 15 rims with Goodyears on them, and 15 rims with American Racers on them. Where does that leave the little guys that can't afford to buy all those different tires and different compounds and play around?
I agree 1,000%. And that was the argument I made. Like, that's not going to help anyone spend less money because if anyone finds a competitive advantage, doesn't matter what the price is. If the competitive advantage costs $20 more a tire, what are you going to go buy? You're not saving $20 to have a competitive disadvantage. So it doesn't really matter how many compounds or how many brands you have. It'll be the one that performs the best.
Yep.
And I have a hard time believing that you're going to get a tire that's equal enough that someone can perform both on a Goodyear, a Hoosier, and an American Racer are all equal, and the prices are the same. You just get to pick your favorite. That's not how it's going to work.
The tire companies aren't going to let that happen because their job is to sell tires, just like we saw the NASCAR tire war. So their job is, hey, our tire is better and we're faster. At what
Yeah.
cost, though? At what cost
I think
is
the
it?
overall pie in the sky idea is that they're going to compete, which is going to drive cost on the tire down. But
It's-
like you said,
it's
that's
not-
you're kind of opening a can of worms with
Right.
Because
performance.
teams
So-
are
Because
their own worst enemy.
so someone feels like they have a competitive advantage, they're going to charge their price more, and everyone's
Mhm.
going to go buy them. That's
Mhm.
what teams do. If
You,
they can
you see it with the shock stuff, like Penske's, whatever factory cane. Once one starts winning, everyone's buying them, no matter what the hell the cost is.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like, think about what we're talking about. Okay, you talk about price competition is good for tires. Price competition hasn't been good for engine builds.
No,
Engines are still 60,000 plus if you want a new one. Shocks are still $3,500 a set for a good set. You know, price competition hasn't drove those prices down.
Yeah.
Honestly, it may has raised the
driven them
bar.
up.
It may have raised the bar.
it creates actually an entry for parts manufacturers to come in and provide a good product and just charge a premium for it.
Right.
If you can create it, you're going to make it because guys will spend it because they feel they have a competitive advantage. That's the problem in racing. We are our own worst enemies. And that's why sanctioning bodies and above think they're smarter than everyone and they're trying to save everybody a buck. It doesn't fucking matter because you're all going to spend it if you can spend it. If you can't spend it, you're not going to spend it and you're going to be okay with that. Period. There's not many guys in that world who have spent less and won more.
Right.
There just isn't.
Right.
I hate to tell you that. It doesn't happen often.
In 410 land, there's probably none of those guys. So
It's occasionally, like Danny doesn't have FKs all the time, right? Like
no,
I know
but
if you talk to Danny, he does a lot with less at times, and you know, you guys as drivers know this more. He would be my prime example of a guy who potentially has some less expensive stuff on his car and can go win races.
Billy and Danny do an incredible job with what they got making it work.
Yeah, 100%. But they're a rare exception. They're an exception to the rule because the rule is we'll just keep spending until we win races, right? Like, and that's the world we live in at the 410 ranks. And I don't. Everyone can bitch about how much it costs all they want until they stop spending. It won't change.
And
then
that's
they're going to feel like they're behind.
It's tough because like we all want to talk about tires, but nobody wants to talk about engine cost. That's what drives me nuts. Like tires are irrelevant if you can't afford to get into the sport.
Yeah. That's not going to hold you back.
Not that the weekly cost isn't an impact because it absolutely is, and it determines how much you go racing. But so does having a good motor.
Yep. Yeah, I agree, and you know I think we're in a constant tug of war between going completely like spec, like almost like NASCAR spec racing, where everything is, you know, so close to we want guys to have an advantage of guys that can figure some things out, like a Danny Dietrich that can figure it out with certain things and help maybe innovate and drive that competition. And hopefully, you know, but everything is just so expensive baseline, no matter what you do. And I think that's really where everybody's problem. Personally, I think that's where everybody's problem is.
With everything going on in the world tonight, I know high limits and a rain delay. I don't know what else is going on. I don't know if we have actually anybody watching this, but Kyle, you're involved in sports. So here's my question: like, oh, it's gone. Never mind. I don't have any.
Craig Dunn is watching. Craig Dunn says,
Craig
"Holy
Dunn's
shit,
here.
my hair!"
East Bay is being flooded.
Yeah, they're in a
It's not
monsoon.
just
By the
rain
way,
delay; it is straight being
yeah,
hammered.
they're done.
It's 8:30 though. I mean, that track is pretty much a flood by the time when they get there, isn't it? Is it any different?
I
don't know.
It's pouring pretty good. It looks like a tropical storm.
It
Maybe
looks
it's low tide.
significant.
It'll all wash away.
It looked very
So
significant.
I want to close that thought on tires. So
And base watching.
with the tires, the tire thing. So as I've thought about this more and I've talked about it and kind of going both ways in my head about, I can understand the drivers wanting a different option, but at the same time, it kind of makes sense where the tracks are trying to save you guys from being your worst enemy by saying we'll sign with one person. Here you go.
Right.
Now, would you love to go to American Racer? It's $20 cheaper a tire. Sure, but doesn't mean it won't be the same price it was next year that Hoosier is this year.
Right.
That's what will happen, right? So maybe the powers that be are actually trying to look out for you guys, not let you be your own worst enemy, and not have 3 or 4 options and have to go buy all that freaking tire money. Look what the 358 fiasco last year. Like, with the way that ended up going, that was a shit show. And it was just a different tire. And it was allowed to be, and then it wasn't allowed to be, and then it was a rule, and then it was this, and then it was that. And guys were, all over the place with it. And, everybody was trying to create their own strategy when it was just nobody knew what was happening.
Right.
So I can only imagine the chaos would ensue between all the teams and the spending. As soon as the tire rule would change and you'd be allowed to have 2 manufacturers, I couldn't even imagine the bitching.
Yeah.
Like, it'd never be, it would never make anyone happy. So I don't know what the end cause is there, but maybe they have it figured out, maybe maybe one manufacturer is it, even if we hate it.
Good example of that. We talk about costs and people complaining about costs. Like, we complain about having 2 options of tires in the 358s this year. Like, guys were getting the H15 for, whatever from the 410 teams, $50. And they were complaining about having to buy the new tire that we're all going to have to run. Now imagine them having to buy 3 other brands or 2 other brands or whatever it may be. We don't even want to buy the same tire that the 410s are running. You know what I mean? Like, okay. That's just like, I totally disagreed with the way, and there, I know there's other drivers that agree and disagree with me, whatever, but I totally disagree with the way that tire rule was handled this year. Because when I saw that we had 4 races and then we had to go to the new tire, I was like, you know what? I'm going to eat these first 4 races. I'm going to figure out this tire. And then hopefully I'll be ahead of my competition because I decided to take the first, couple races and try to figure them out. And then it turned into this whole deal where, we decided not to. And now all of a sudden, some guys are running H15, some guys are running a D15. It just turned into this whole thing. And then it pissed me off because I'm like, okay, well, I spent all this money, burn off my H15s I had at BAPS, spent all this money to get the new tire. And now here we are, so I'm like, well, I'm not going to go back now. I'm not going to go backwards. I'm not going to try to buy used tires and run the rest of the year. That doesn't make sense at this point. I've already transitioned. So, like, there was turmoil in our division changing over to the new spec tire, that one tire that we all have to run eventually. So, like, I think it's laughable sometimes that people want price competition that's not really going to be price competition, because if they see that Hoosier's selling a D15 tire for $350, do you think anybody's going to come in here at $275 and say, here, try this? Why would you?
100% right. They set the bar.
Exactly. And if you're a tire company, that's lost money.
Yeah.
That's just my thoughts.
Ampe has and this is something that we had Austin Berry on a few weeks ago. We kind of learned a little bit about the whole late model deal because, especially me and Jay-Z, we were just used to, the whole sprint car thing that says, look at the late model tires. They bitched about too many tire compounds. They stopped making one compound. Then everybody bitched that they didn't have enough to choose from. It's a double-edged sword.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nobody's ever 100% happy.
Yeah, the only person happy at the end of the night is the guy that won. So, Danny Dietrich's good for Central PA Racing, and his personality when you meet him at his shop versus his personality on Twitter are very different. And I give Danny fans a hard time, and I give Danny a hard time at times with what he says and does. But like at the end of the day, he gets it and he's smart, right? So,
and he's usually right.
So everyone's going to bitch. And he's that guy that goes, if he wins a race, it was the best thing ever. Everything was great. Track prep was great. Car was great. Tire was great. Track was great. The fans were great. The checker flag waving was great, digital or not. But when he doesn't win, it's like lap cars, track prep, weather, this, that, the other thing. That's what we do as racers. If you didn't win, the only happy person in the field is the winner.
Right.
Everybody else is finding a reason why they didn't win other than themselves, right? So because it's egos. Can't imagine there's any egos in racing, right?
None.
There's none of that. None of that going on.
Not even a little bit. Still pouring at East Bay, by the way.
Yeah.
20 minutes later.
Listen, I'm glad they started at like 5:30, but it is a Monday night. I mean,
they pushed through. They only had
they were going to C Main last I looked.
C Main dash. They got through all the heats and everything.
I saw the river was flowing then. I'm like, oh buddy.
Yeah, I don't know what's the weather look like the rest of the week there. I heard Daytona already looks like shitty for Sunday, but what's the rest of the week look like?
It's Florida, man. They're probably just gonna have thunderstorms every day.
Which is crazy that Volusia got all that racing in. Volusia
Yeah.
got all that racing in. There was I didn't hear a word about weather all
They're
those days. But
They're in the better part of the state. I think USAC is fine. They're at Volusia right now, having a good time.
Of course.
for whatever reason, the Tampa side, they're on because East Bay's Tampa, right?
It's because
Ish.
Oh, speaking of East Bay and Sean Keen here, Aunt Bay.
Hey.
I got a text message earlier from Sean Keen at East Bay, living it up in the sun. I wonder how he's liking that rain.
Sean Keen loves himself some Jeremy Harfest. I'm just saying.
He texts me all the time. He texts me the trailer pictures before you did.
Listen. I'm like, hey Jeremy, like, what do you think of this? He's like, oh yeah, saw it 3 days ago. I'm like, oh, okay, sure. Thanks, Dad.
All the time, dude. He texts me a picture of the motor, and then you text me a picture of the motor. Or no, you actually sent me a picture of the motor first, and then he sent it maybe an hour later. He sent me the same. He sent the same thing. Cracked me up, dude. I love Sean.
I do.
And every time I see him, man, he cracks me up. I'm glad. How long have they been in Florida? They just get down there, or what are they doing?
They were supposed to leave Wednesday, and they decided they were going to spend 2 more days down there. So they'll be down there for like 12 or 13 days now.
Nice,
But-
good for them.
Nice.
Yeah, but he's just FYI, he's just sucking up to mom. That way, when race season comes around, he doesn't hear this in his ear. I already took you to Florida, honey. It's all good. We all know how that works.
And
That's
they
why-
asking, when are we going to see Sean take the buggy out for some hot laps?
This year is beginning of the year. We're not going to wait till the end of the year, like I've tried the past 2 years. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it probably in between. So 410 plans real quick. We're gonna take the 410 out for practice March 2nd at Port Royal, if I'm feeling up to it, and then we're gonna go to BAPS that following Wednesday and practice 358. Make sure everything's kosher there, and then we're gonna take the 410 back to BAPS that Saturday and practice all day with that. I would like to, in between there and my first 358 race, March 29th, I'd like to get Dad in the car at the next BAPS practice. I think there's another one in between. I think. I just told him to not step on it too hard that he tears it up before I even get it out. It's questionable. It's been literally 20 years, 21 years this year since he's been in a sprint car. So I don't know what to think.
Man, that's
I would
crazy.
detune the shit out of that thing before you get out there.
So you have 2 cars. You got one car for 358. You have one car 410. You're not gonna have to do swapping and in and out, right?
Right.
So if let's say you get hypothetical, let's have a little fun here. Hypothetically, you get June, July, we get to August. We have a 410 358 show, 410 360 show at Williams Grove. Double duty. Let's say the season goes great. You're having a great year. You're feeling good.
He's already won 6 races. And,
Yeah.
If we're 6 races in, then yeah, probably. But no, we've talked about this before, and I know this is going to happen. Like, we've swore up and down since this whole off season started that we weren't going to do double duty night because it's extremely taxing on the crew guys. I know what's going to happen when the season starts. There's going to be Yellow Breeches 500 race at Williams Grove, and there's going to be a 358 race at Williams Grove. And somehow we're going to figure out a way to run both cars that night. I know it's going to happen. We keep telling ourselves it's not, but we know it's going to.
If it does, this 3 right here can scrape mud. We can push cars. We can dump fuel in it. We'll do all the grunt work. You just get your guys working the important shit. You got us, buddy. We'll be there. We'll figure it out.
We have experience.
Yeah.
You guys, yeah.
I pushed a wingless sportsman one time.
I was gonna say, ask the Paragos. We they're our reference. So I don't know if that's a good. I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
We're trained. Don't get hooked on the tank and don't get drunk on the racetrack. That was my advice.
The other part I want to know is how do you get the other car there?
Open trailer.
Oh yes.
Hell
Let's
yeah.
go.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm in,
Figure it
brother.
out.
I'm in. That has to happen now. Even if you show up as a threat with 2 cars, man, you just park them both in the pits. Like, yeah, daddy, look at us. We got 2 cars, bitches.
Yeah, and that's it.
Believe East Bay has canceled.
Just leave it on the trailer. Just leave it there.
Everything we got's out here.
There it is. That's all we got. The whole shop's here, boys.
Let's send it.
We got one. I want to get the one question back from the audience. Alex Robinson, Bridgeport announcer, any thoughts about going to Bridgeport for any of their races? I think they only have the 1-4-10 race.
It's not. Well, I don't. When is it?
It's a Sunday.
April 7th.
March.
April 7th. So it'd be like your second race.
No, he's not doing that. Alex.
Hey, do you ask?
If it was like August, September timeframe, I consider it. Probably not April.
Is.
Yeah, probably not April.
A little premature for that for Bridgeport.
High limit running double duty tomorrow.
We're not going to put the cart before the horse.
Yep, they are canceled.
Tony says they're running both of them tomorrow.
Oh, that's good. They only have to make up the
Wild
features, basically.
And
Yeah, I'm really
find me a car, and I'll be there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, what about your second car, Ant? You got more cars? I mean, come on.
Yeah, figure it out. Help our boy out.
The seats unbolt faster than motors do.
All right, give me. We'll get you out of here, man. It's been almost an hour. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Give me something memorable from this past season, man. Give me a moment that, hell, I don't even remember half the season. I feel like it was a blur last year, even for me. Give me a moment last year where it was something memorable, good, bad, or indifferent.
Honestly, most memorable was probably our most difficult time of the year, and I say that in a good way because there was a lot of like soul searching, like when. Nothing's more embarrassing than wrecking on the pace lap to line up for a feature. Totally out of my control, but
still,
it makes you look like he just like lost the handle and like I just stuffed it in the wall. You know what I mean? Like
that was Anton Hernandez. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a little humility in that, like like hey, like guys wreck, shit happens, like. We got to move on. I totally completely tore up everything on a race car. Like there's my first one. In that difficult time, some people stepped up and helped us. I.e. Jake Rodaball. They lended me a motor so I could try to finish out the year. Some of his crew guys came over and helped us put a car together. My spare car that I ran. Beginning of my 358 career. And in that, there was just kind of like this screw it mentality. Like, we threw everything we had left on that car. And I was like, you know what? If I wreck it, screw it. Then we're done. Like, there's no let's just go out and send it. And I feel like in doing that, I learned more those last 4 races that I had somebody else's motor in my car with new guys helping my race team than I did previously the 12 races, 15 races before that. So there was some really good out of some really bad, and obviously things happened. I made a mistake and tore up that car. But my confidence didn't come down after I wrecked the second time. It made me feel like I knew that I was seeing the effort I was putting in, like culminating, not necessarily like coming to a head, but culminating, like, hey, it's starting to stir. Like I had a couple people like come up to me at the end of the year there when we were running good. They're like, hey man, like you guys are fast. Like, we had some pretty good runs at Williams Grove. I mean, a tire mistake I made, at Williams Grove cost me a top 5, but that was probably my most memorable, transitioning from completely tearing a car up, like taking a little humility and, asking someone for help. That's difficult for me, reaching out to one of my sponsors and asking for help, building another car and running well out of the gate. I mean, we came out of the gate with that car and we were second quick at Lincoln in hot laps. I mean, like blazing fast. And the only one that beat us was freaking Ant. And Kyle. And I take nothing away from Kyle because he's a hell of a driver. We all know that. We all know he's got great things coming up in this sport. But to turn that around in that short of a time frame and make that leap was pretty special to me because it made us dig deep. And I felt like we showed that our true colors when times got tough.
Yeah, I agree. I was standing in 3 and 4 that night when I red flagged during like lining up, and I looked over and I'm like, oh no. And I didn't even go back to the pits that night because there was nothing I could have done to make y'all feel better, do whatever. I don't think I went across maybe till later or, maybe at all. I don't even know if we talked about it, but you know, watching what happened those next few weeks, just kind of observing, and I was like, they're cut out for this. Like they're not giving up on this. You could have easily just packed it in and sold your shit and said, I'm good. I don't need to do this anymore. Like
This was
there's those
fun.
moments, right? When you're low on equipment, the motor, don't have a ton of extras, and it feels like almost like starting over in a way. I mean, you had stuff sitting around, but the big part of it, right? You can't go anywhere if you don't have a motor that runs. So a lot of resiliency there, and racing more. Listen, there's some good moments, but more often than not, right, the winning percentage is going to kick you in the nuts, right? And it's going to be how you overcome those things and move forward if you want to, right? It's how bad you want it. So super
Yeah,
cool.
and to give a quick shout out on that whole scenario, like Ant, obviously we've gotten close with the Smith team, between Ant and Kyle and Shane, their owner. They stepped up immediately and said, like, listen, if you can't find a motor, we got one for you. Like, and I was standing there when Ant asked Shane and Shane asked Kyle, and Kyle was like, dude, like, I'm totally cool with it. Let's do it. And that was cool to me. Like, because they didn't have to do that. Ant didn't have to ask Shane, and Kyle didn't have to be okay with it. That's Kyle's backup motor. And,
Right.
For them to do that for me made me feel good that, like, hey, like, we're all kind of out here for each other, and like we're doing the right things, or we're meeting the right people. We're taking care of each other. Like, if I had a second motor, I'd do the same for them as far as 358. So that's cool. That was cool to me. So special shout out to those guys.
Yeah, for sure. Circling back to what I forgot about earlier was a question for the crowd or whoever else. When is the last time that anyone can remember a manufacturer coming into the sport with a competitive product at a cheaper price?
Never.
Was it Triple X?
Triple X might have been the only one that I would just right off the top of my head that came in with a low frame cost.
That's all my brain went to was Triple X. And
Yeah.
people believed in it. People kind of shit on it, but there's a lot of people still running it. Was there anything like I don't remember something making a lot of noise and news recent memory that came in with a competitive product that can go win races for less money than the standard. Like Ant might know this. This is probably higher level than myself, but Triple X was the only thing I could think of. Everything else has been, hey, we're new. This is innovative. Go pay all the money.
Yep.
That's kind of what I've been feeling. I mean, I'd love to hear any feedback. I mean, there's some sharp people in here. Tony's in here. I don't know if some other Craig's done. He's not sharp.
You got hooked up to my charger. I got hooked up to my charger.
No, I don't know. Crowd today might be a little light on it, but I'd be curious if anybody has that. Message us, comment. Yeah, there you go. Triple X is still way cheaper than anyone else, right? And I know there's a lot of high-profile teams still running Triple X, right? There was even a push after Triple X came in. Everybody was going back to Maxim. They're running this, they're running that, going back to Maxim. But at the end of the day, there's still a lot of high-profile teams running Triple X today and winning with it, right? Shark Team, I believe, is still Triple X. Am I right?
Yep.
I think they won something, $1 million race or something last year in a Triple X. So I think
hear that.
one of those. The 2D Chase runs Triple X. So I'm just curious on that, right? Because I feel like there's a market for that. Can you build a competitive product out there for less money that competes with the best of the business for less, and can you still market share with it, right? I don't know if there's bars, things like that. The titanium stuff seems to be like the wave, but it's just more money.
Yeah, that's not necessarily the answer. Like, I would love to see a competitive motor for less money. We can talk about components all day, but motors is what's ridiculous. I mean,
do you think that ever changes though with the shortages?
No, you'll never come down. In my opinion, you'll never see. In my opinion, you'll never see costs come down. They always go up.
Let me ask you this. Even if the cost came down for the hard parts, do you think that the builder makes up for the difference to be competitive and make it up in labor? and their fees?
I don't know. That's a tough ask because there's a lot involved in building a motor these days, especially with the tight tolerances that, and not even saying 410s, like 305s, 358s, like there's so much machining involved, or there's so many special parts. Like, I don't know. They're labor intensive. Like obviously parts are expensive, but they're also labor intensive. So I don't know. I don't see it coming down now.
Like I just feel like in that world, I don't see it coming down either. By the way, I don't see that that's happening unless you go run a crate series, right? And you're just locked in. That's what it is. When it's open like that, I don't see it. I don't see it ever changing. If you're a player in the 410 engine building business, and everyone can figure out the ticket price of a motor. If the hard parts get cheaper, the price still goes up. That money's going to the builder.
Yep.
Is a builder ever going to give you a break?
Right.
And so you're the top. They're not giving you a break because they're going to pay the bill, and you're going to go along saying see ya and run your 20 races. So
your break nowadays is them not marking up material.
But how do you know that's happening? Do you get a breakdown and know?
No, you don't. You get a breakdown of whatever each item costs, but you're not getting a breakdown of what it costs for them to get it.
Right. You're getting a breakdown itemized of what the price is for you.
Right.
Right.
That's
listen, whatever. That's why they exist. I get that. I worked in that kind of industry that there's markup on all that stuff. But if they got a deal on a part and it was reliable and competitive, do you think you get the same money?
No.
You're not saving a damn dime. It's going to go in their pocket, right? And I'm not saying they're bad guys. I'm not saying that at all. That's how they run a business to stay afloat. But at the same time, where does it ever end? It's never going to end until people stop paying it. But there's the competitive part.
So that's what scares me about. So we talk about sprint cars making more money, like to start the race, to win the race, et cetera, through the field. What scares me is that there's not enough talk about reducing operating costs. Like eventually someday these motors are going to be so expensive it's not going to matter. You can bring the operating costs down, but if you can't get into the sport, what do we have? Like we thrive. Like this area thrives on newcomers coming into the sport. We have to. That's what's made the posse so great. Is like we've had guys that come in and they have good equipment and they race hard and they can compete against the traveling teams that come in. And there's a lot of drivers in this area that are capable of winning races. You can't get drivers in seats if you can't afford to do it.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't. That's what scares me about the 410 division is the cost of the motors keep rising. And, we talk about races paying more money, but we don't talk enough about reducing the motor costs. And I'm not saying, like you said, Jeremy, I'm not saying motor builders are bad people. Everybody has rising costs. They have a business, they have to make money or they can't exist. I just don't know what we do about it.
Yeah, and I don't think a crate type deal is the answer. Not in the 410 ranks, not at the top level of the sport. But it keeps bringing me back to the NASCAR thing. If the 410 division is the NASCAR of dirt, right? When it comes to sprint cars, NASCAR went to basically spec.
Yep.
There's no ingenuity, there's no innovation, there's no competition. This is what you got. We're not even there at 410 ranks, right? There's still a lot of money, obviously, to build a cup car. But if the sanctioning body went there, who's the sanctioning body for sprint cars? Is it the World of Outlaws, or is it High Limit, or there isn't one?
I think
right?
you would go
Because
track
it's
rules.
open.
You would go track rules would follow probably the World of Outlaws or High Limit, whatever they decide.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like all tracks follow traveling series.
Yeah.
And they have, but who's going to be the answer? So if the World of Outlaws decide to do something, let's say they do something big in the motor department, you're just putting a divide in the whole 410 ranks.
Right.
Because you're either going over there where they don't have the rule, or you're going over there. Does one of the two, well, let's say High Limit or World of Outlaws, do something with engine rules to help costs, and the other one doesn't?
Yeah, the only way it would work, they both would have to do it. That's the only way for it to work and truly lower costs.
In the state of the sport right now, what are the odds that happens?
0%.
Nobody can agree.
So, there is no end in sight.
We don't even know if we like a flagman or not yet.
Right. And there's no end in sight now because what are the alternatives? You can barely get a 410 motor built.
Right.
Like with parts, you can't even. But how long is it taking for heads? I heard someone say 16 weeks or something. For or pistons or heads. I don't even know what it is. There's material shortages in the world, not 410 ranks, just in the world to get these parts casted. So, nothing's going to change. It's nothing in the short term. There's not
No,
a thing
nothing.
that's changed.
Should we touch on the virtual flagman quick? I'm sure
Yeah,
you
I was
guys.
going to ask you about that.
we're gonna go right there. You give us your thoughts on virtual flagman.
And
Yeah, where do you see that going in the future, maybe with other tracks?
Again, this will be unpopular, and Jeremy knows where I stand on this. It's not a big deal, people. It's not going to be. I mean, I understand.
on board.
I understand tradition 150%, and I am there for people when it comes to the tradition aspect of that, because I agree there is a nostalgia to having a flagman, and there is something to be said about when you go to the checkered flag to win the race. You go under the flagman waving the checkered flag. There is something about that that's special. I don't want that to be taken away, but as a driver, I don't pay attention to the flagman enough for it to be worth somebody risking their life to be in that stand. In my opinion, we have radio race receivers in our ears that work pretty decent. Like every once in a while, I can't hear. That's rare, but it's usually like something that comes unplugged or my battery dies, something stupid that I do. But you got lights are all around the track. You got a race receiver, and you got flag guys in the corner still. It's not going to be the end of the world. And honestly, I think as long as the system works, because we all know the scoreboard deal didn't work worth a damn like 3/4 of the time last year. I don't think it's a bad thing.
The key is the system has to work.
Right.
That's
well,
the key.
we're all going to see it. If we get an icebreaker this year, we're all going to get to see it, and we're going to get to see it play out. At the end of the day, even if that screen, whatever size, shape, placement that it is, if that fails, there's still humans with flags that you guys see more often than the flagman or the screen.
Yep.
And the lights around the track. I've never seen at Lincoln Speedway, no matter how much shitty electronics don't work, the wheel and lights around the track work.
Yep.
They've never not. I don't remember, right? I don't remember that place going black for a lot of years. I think I went there one time and the whole place went dark. Maybe not.
That'd be sketchy.
That would be very sketchy.
Luckily it was during downtime, whatever. But like, even if that thing stopped working, yeah, you're still going to have flagmen with flags that have always been there. You're going to have the wheel and lights that are red, yellow, green. That tells more of the drivers than that flagman in the stand ever did. Yep. And over the headset. So none of those other systems, whether it's the wheel and lights, the flagmen, or the race receivers, have gone out at the same time. It doesn't happen. Humans still have flags in their hand. Period. So, and the drivers get to see those more, because most of the time, how many drivers at one time are crossing under the flagman to see the flagman when a red flag comes out? Sometimes none, maybe one, right? They're over the radio, looking at the lights and looking at the flagman in the corners, period. So I agree. It's been overblown. I understand if people are just upset about tradition, but it's overblown. I agree with you completely.
Yeah. And like from experience racing at Lincoln, like, honestly, I probably hear the receiver person yelling in my ear before I even see lights. Like, for the most part, I know there's freak occasions where they miss something. I get that. Sure. It happens at every freaking racetrack. Nobody's perfect. But majority of the time, I hear red, 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 or yellow, 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 turn 3 before the lights even come on. And that's a testament to the people in the tower, making sure that we're aware of what's going on the racetrack. Yeah. Having an extra set of eyes up there now is probably going to even be a better thing, in my opinion. So
yeah, I agree. As long as, again, it's still humans involved, and it's not going to be perfect, but it wasn't perfect with or without a flagman. It doesn't matter. So it's just one person away from being in danger of anything that could happen. There's guys who have to wear full face helmets up there. But a lot of them wear full face helmets up there. That's stupid. They didn't used to, but they do now, and they have shields up, right, so they don't get dirt. Okay, you can see. It just seems outdated. And I believe, not that Lincoln needs to be a test, because there's been tests around the world already being done. I'll show you who's done it. I think it goes there. That's where it's going to go. And I'm okay. That's okay. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Life goes on.
What are your thoughts, Chris?
Life goes on, man. I don't know. I'm not gonna cry about flagman or not. Like, his purpose is for you guys, not for me.
Yeah, that's what I don't understand. Like
But some
Like, it's
people feel like
cool. Like,
it is.
I knew the signals and I knew what it meant, but it wasn't for me. I'm supposed to just watch race cars go fast. Like,
the majority of people that are complaining about it don't even directly benefit or not from that.
right. At most, I would look over at the flagman and see like the 5s to go signal or the 2 to go if I couldn't see the scoreboard.
Yeah.
But again, if I couldn't see it, does not affect me watching race cars go vroom. That's all I'm there for.
There's not many places in Central PA that you need to see the flagman as a fan.
Really, it's only Port Royal we're in turn 2 because we can't see the scoreboard.
Right.
You can't even see the flagman at Port Royal. Like if you're sitting in the pit grandstands, you can't even hardly see him.
Yeah, if you're sitting in pit grandstands with the angle,
but turn 2, you can see them.
But it's pit grandstands, you have the board, right? So, like for me at Baps, if I'm standing in the middle of 3 and 4, in the middle of 1 and 2, I can't see. I can see the flagman in 1 and 2, 3 and I guess I can in both sides. I can see the flagman, but I cannot see any boards because that board runs parallel. It's in the middle of the infield, so I have to be able to use the flagman. I can see him. That's how I can even tell what if I look over each lap or how many laps. If I get a feeling, I'm usually pretty good at guessing.
Right.
Halfway, 5 to go, whatever. Port Royal, I can sometimes see the tall board, right? Lincoln, depending on where I'm at, but I'm in the minority. If you're a fan and you're just sitting as a fan, you have something of reference. Yeah, you don't need the flag. You just don't.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I'm with you. I don't need it. Like, I'm not gonna. Again, his job is to be there for the racers. So if every racer we've talked to says they don't need them, then
yeah,
what the hell ever, we don't need them.
I just hope
any racers that have said, "Man, I'm going to miss it because I rely on them."
I don't think anyone that we've talked to so far has said that.
Right.
I hope they put like a virtual like flag guy on the screen, just to be ignorant.
Just
it would be amazing.
That
if
would
they
be great.
With iRacing somehow, got the iRacing flagger on there. That'd be great.
In the iRacing
track is on iRacing, you know, like getting whatever his name is. What's his name? What's the flagger on iRacing's name?
Barney.
Yeah, man. Barney. That sounds awful. Let's not do that, actually.
Yeah. I mean,
anyway, so what do you think, man? Are we going to get an icebreaker this year? We're 2 weeks away.
Are we going to what?
We're going to get an icebreaker?
Coming from the construction world where I have to watch the weather daily, it's not looking promising. But it's a little bit away yet. Weather changes frequently. So, I mean, I'm hopeful. I'd love to be there on a Saturday, smelling methanol burning and watching race cars go fast again. So I'm always hopeful for that, but we'll see.
100%. All right, man. Hey, we're going to get you out of here, dude. It's an hour and 20 minutes. We're going to get out of here too. Appreciate you being here, brother, again, on short notice, man. I appreciate your time and your insight as always, and good luck this year. And I'll put March 2nd on my calendar to take a drive to Port Royal. Is that what we're hearing here?
That's what we're hearing.
What is there racing that day anywhere? I guess
open practice.
Open practice.
No, but is
Nowhere.
Lincoln racing that day?
I mean, probably, but Lincoln always races.
Are they?
On Saturday? They should be.
Lincoln races from basically icebreaker till Christmas time.
They race every week.
Day racing. All right, I'll have to figure that out. I mean,
either way,
it's hard to miss a race to see a practice, but
yeah,
and
Lincoln
it's an hour and
races
a half
that
away.
day, and you're driving past Lincoln to do it.
It's not just any practice, bro.
It's not
just any practice, dude.
Hey, I'd go up there. I'd see Devin Adams practice. Okay, not Kyle Keen. All right.
Hey, Devin's coming on. He'll be there.
I know he is, dude. Listen. There's some Port guys that like some of those young guys that came out of that 305 division, and watching them progress the last couple of years and in their 410 stuff, and it took some time. Starting to get pretty competitive, man. They're running some competitive laps and starting to show up a little bit more and passing some cars and being in the mix versus just sort of being out there making laps. So, you know, they've done it right. And even listen, Devin Adams won a lot of 305 races. Garrett Bard won a lot of 305 races. They struggled pretty mightily in a 410 at the beginning. It's an evolution. It's time. It's evolution. You get around the track, figure out how the air works, how to get the grip when you're on your own, let alone with other cars. So, man, I'm excited to see your progression too, and see how you feel after those ass whoopings some nights, and watch you grow, man. So we're excited. We appreciate you being here, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Jimmy,
Kyle.
Sponsor shout outs this year, brother. Who you got?
You say Jimmy or Kyle?
I was
He
gonna
definitely
let
said
Jimmy, do
Jimmy,
it, but
but
You already did it.
he was going to let Jimmy do it, but he did it anyway.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Jimmy, do sponsor shout out. You said, hey, do sponsor shout out. So I'll just go ahead and do it. Shout out your sponsors, brother.
Corvette Parts, Keen Parts, Tom Keen and TJ Keen. Them planning on being on board with us again this year. Really looking forward to that. Heisman Racing Fuels, they supply all our fuel. Brett Clark with 2B Wrapped. He does all of our vinyl work on our cars and does a beautiful job. Fine Line Auto Body with Jake helps us out a bunch. Appreciate him and everything he does. Shetron Trailers. Addicted to Dirt with Rich Watts over there. Appreciate what he does for us. And we have a new one coming on. Dustin Lehman. Can't forget Dustin. He's been with me since the start. And we have a new one that we'll be announcing here in the next couple weeks, probably. Looking forward to introducing a new company and group of individuals to the world of sprint car racing. So that's going to be exciting for us.
Hell yeah, dude!
Nice.
Congratulations, brother. I'm excited to see who that is and see them out there and supporting you, because I know that the partners that you've had have been loyal to you and they're supportive and they support the industry in general. So thanks again, man. Appreciate you being here, and we'll see you out here on the racetrack hopefully anytime soon.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
See you,
Thanks,
bud.
Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle.
Kyle Keen, everyone. Always a pleasure to have him on. Excited to see him in a 410 this year and see what the year brings for him. Randy Kopp says Glenville Pub and Grub are hosting an icebreaker party.
That could be fun.
Kind of party. That does sound fun.
I'm intrigued.
Party.
All right, let's just touch base real quick
Party.
on Volusia this past week. Got 4 races in. World of Outlaws got, obviously high limit right now is rained out. They'll do a doubleheader tomorrow, but first sprint car racing of the year, about 50 cars every night, just pretty close, 45, 50 cars. First night was Brad Sweet. Let me get the right one up. There it is. Over Tyler Courtney. He led all 25 laps, was pretty dominant. Our PA guys, Macri was top 10 about all week. So was Brent. Brent was right there. And Danny was kind of up and down, but when he was in the feature, he ran well. So that was the first night. Second night was Rico or
David Gravel.
David Gravel was the second night, right? I have these out of order, so I apologize. David Gravel won. Not really shocking. David Gravel's so good at Volusia. He's really good at the big tracks. Rico second. Justin Peck with a nice podium. Brett Marks in the top 10. Macri in 13th. Danny Dietrich 16th. Then the third night was Tyler Courtney this was probably the best finish of the week. Really good race. Tyler Courtney got him right at the line, bottom, snuck Rico on the bottom there, got him at the line. And that night also caused a little bit of controversy, which we'll talk about here in a second on social media. And then the final big race, 20,000 I'm pretty sure it's 20,000 to win. I don't think this is right.
Yeah,
Sheldon Hansfield won with Anthony Macri in second. He ran really well. I was kind of hoping that he would have won. Brad Sweet third. That was really it. So controversy was that third night where it was all 3 high limit guys on the podium, and high limit kind of put out a little tweet like, oh, we went to a World of Outlaw race and the high limit race broke out or whatever, which I thought was just a funny little jab, but people really took that to heart and took it seriously. And
because I think the general population just wants them both to coexist and life go on.
yeah, they're coexisting though. I mean, obviously they're racing with them.
Sounds
Like,
like
We do, we applauded them when they leaned into the posse versus outlaw thing.
yeah, that's a friendly rivalry though. It's more friendly than straight up stealing all their employees and their sponsors now.
Fair enough, but I mean, I don't think it's that big of a deal, for them to.
I'm not saying I
push,
think it's a big deal, but I could see where it could be a touchy subject. You take a lot of their personnel. Now, Whiskey Myers, take it for what it's worth. They technically stole a sponsor from them at this point too. Stole in quotes, like they got the sponsor that was theirs. So it's a little more personal than the Posse versus Outlaws, where it's like, hey, we're gonna kick your ass. No, we're gonna kick your ass. But we all at the end of the day like each other, ish.
I mean, if they're going to continue to race with each other, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I get it. I get it.
It's the same but different, in my opinion.
Yeah, I get it. People were calling them unprofessional and stuff. I don't think it needs to go that far. I thought it was just a fun little jab, and
yeah,
I don't think it's
the
something.
only people upset are World of Outlaw people, like people that are fans of the World of Outlaws and World Racing Group. Everybody else is like, yeah, this is fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why the people are taking it and being like as offensive, or it's a personal shot to anyone. Why would High Limit not enjoy that? If that happened,
if it was the other way around, the Outlaws would do it and it would be okay.
but the Outlaws have not said anything negative about the division. Yeah, and High Limit hasn't said anything negative about the division. People are creating it because of some of the people that have left and things have gone over, but that's competition. That's the world we live in. Happens every day in the real world, people. People leave one place and go to a competition and do something different.
Also, the Outlaws don't get the opportunity like High Limit guys to go run against the Outlaws and kind of stick it in their face.
That's right. So when let's turn that around. And when we talked about the World of Outlaws at Port Royal last season race, and the All-Star guys went up there and whooped some tail, nobody was upset that they did. Nobody was upset that someone said the All-Star guys whooped their tail. Nobody was pissed. Is it because of this pseudo working together feeling between the Outlaws and the All-Stars all these years?
Well,
gives a shit. It's the same thing. Why High Limit just did the same thing?
I think the way
with the race of Volusia and the High Limit race broke out.
Big viewership,
big deal.
The viewership. I think the way Outlaws viewed the All-Stars was they were lesser.
They were little brother.
Right.
And now little brother is grown up.
And is kicking their ass.
And will punch you back in the mouth.
And took their 5-time champion.
Yeah.
So, or is their 5-time champion.
And stole your bitch. Little brother grew up, will punch you in the mouth, and stole your bitch.
They didn't take anyone. He left.
I know, but
right. But the dumbing it down version is that's what happened. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think Anthony Macri has been solid down there all week. You said top 10 every night. I think that's good for him. That's good for that team. Brent Marks, set quick time twice.
Mm-hmm. Him and Brian Brown were really, really fast early in the night.
And then I don't know what happens after that. Like Brian Brown falls off the face of the planet. Brent was in both dashes the last 2 nights, right? Mm-hmm. And then started 6th, finished.
He went backwards 2 of the nights, still within basically top 10.
Which is still very not Brent Marks like to do that. So that's interesting.
Well, it is a Volusia a little bit. It's not.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's Volusia. I think it's a Volusia.
You got to go start up in those top 3 spots to have a shot.
I think it just feels.
Even in his best years, he's never set the world on fire at Volusia. So it's not completely surprising. But the fact that he has single car speed against the best in the world, that's a good sign, because that hasn't always been there. Even if he hasn't been good at Volusia, that also wasn't there. So that's a good sign.
That's where I was going with it. We've seen him in other places not time so well, but race his way up into wins and podiums, and it's kind of interesting to see him go the other way. But Macri's been good. Danny's made all the features too, right? I believe. Dietrich.
I think he missed one. He missed one, and then he started parked the last one.
Still.
So basically, no, 2. He missed 2. So.
Good for him.
I mean, 50%, but close enough to making all of them.
It counts in my book. I don't know. Otherwise, no real surprises for me down there. I mean, Brad Sweet.
Are you crazy?
I thought Tyler Courtney was a huge surprise. He was so strong all week.
First, Macedo was a surprise in a bad way.
Well, I'm talking about good surprises. True. I'm not talking about the bad ones yet. I was thinking good ones in my head. Brad Sweet being fast, unsurprising. Gravel.
David Gravel
Courtney,
won the Big Gator.
I mean, I guess
he won the week-long.
I guess Sheldon coming out of whatever hell he was in early in the week, coming out and winning was a kind of surprise.
He got his first career win at Volusia. I wasn't really that surprised.
I thought Macri had a pretty good spot there. He raced a really good race, but didn't work out. Macedo missing and having to use provisional. That's wild.
Yeah, Landon Crawley not being a surprise. Good call.
He was a surprise. Yeah.
It's the best of 7S's performed over a course of a 3-4 day span in years. Let's be honest, right? And it's Volusia with Landon Crawley. Who saw that coming?
Yeah.
0.0% of people, right?
Yeah, no, I
So
didn't
good
see
for,
that.
good for
I
them.
guess-
But
I
he
guess
also
for
went.
Jason Sides,
He also
somebody saw
went
it.
down to 14th and 2 laps in the feature, which was kind of expected. But
You're right. I
But-
mean, that's probably the bar people set. But
yeah.
for him to go out and do what he did early in the nights, no matter Jason Sides, no offense to anybody else who's been in the car, but that hasn't performed like that single car or heat or
Right.
feature action
He's
in
16.
a long time.
He's 16, right? Like that's
Yeah.
future's bright.
So pretty cool.
See, I mean, Brock, another tough week, tearing shit up already.
I think Donnie
poor
Schatz's
guy.
best are the cars that he did, not a surprise, but get the qualifying under control. Donnie Schatz went plus 12 or more 2 nights of the 4. So that was pretty cool. And tracks that a couple of those tracks were not necessarily easy to pass. But like, I think Justin Peck had a pretty good couple nights. He was he showed a lot of speed at Volusia and through the night. Yeah, like Peck right there's plus 3. There's Logan and Donnie plus 11 and plus 12. Sheldon went plus 11. That's not really that's hard to do sometimes at that place because it doesn't slow down. So I think Gio had a pretty good week. I think he had some good showings as well. I think Gio picked some wins off this year, man. Like, not that he didn't win last year, but we talked about his consistency, but he was just kind of there, one rookie of the year. Gio could win 10 races this year. It wouldn't surprise me. That's a lot. That's a big number, but it wouldn't surprise me a bit, So
He finished. I'm just realizing here, I'm going through, I'm like, what? He finished 4th 3 times.
Yeah.
3 out of the 4 races he finished 4th.
I get
Sneaky,
with 40 to 50
very
car
sneaky.
fields, quiet, but like you put him in a field with the best of the best, and there's 28 cars, he can go win races. Like, 50 cars is a lot. Not that I don't know why 28 cars was a number, but like he's going to go race the best. Well, but I'm saying like with 50 cars, you had a lot of those high limit guys. You had some of the other best in the world, Rico,
You had to be
and
good all night to
Brad
be up there.
and Brent. You had a lot of fast cars. You go to middle of Texas and you have 28 cars, and it's just your top 6 or 7. He can win some races this year. Like, it's not going to surprise me at all. I would not be surprised at all.
I agree.
Yeah.
Modifieds, man. It was great, right?
I don't want to talk about the modifieds.
Didn't even watch a single one.
6 features every night.
I guess Tyler, whatever. Yeah. What else we got?
Won a race. Don't even want to say it. Let's move it on. What else?
That's
USAC
really
got some racing in at East Bay. That was cool to see those guys ripping a little bit.
At Ocala or whatever.
Ocala, yeah, not East Bay. Ocala. I
I
watched some of the late models actually down at East Bay. That was some good racing a couple nights. I enjoyed watching some of that. The guy that just won the 18D. Shit, it was his first career Lucas Oil win last night before. It was pretty cool, man. Watching him in victory lane. What the hell is that guy's name? Shoot, somebody speak up. Who's the late model guy that just won? The dude that just won his first career Lucas Oil race. He finished second like 8 times or something in his career, and he never won in the first couple of years. So, it was Dylan something. Damn.
I don't know.
Hold on, I'm gonna find it. Dalton Wilson. That's it. Dalton Wilson. Sorry. Dalton Wilson. Yeah, that's it. So that was cool to see him win, man. Like, they kept hyping it up about him winning this race, and there was yellow after yellow, and there was yellow with like 2 to go, and it was like all these big names were right behind him, and he pulled it off, man. Because I guess he'd been in position to win a bunch before and just finished second or just come up just short. And his interview was pretty cool in victory lane. So I enjoyed watching the late models. Those couple nights, it was fun to watch when I stayed awake to watch it. So pretty good start to the season.
Yeah. A little, disappointing with tonight with the rain, but so tomorrow night will be the final 410 race at East Bay. Then, forever.
Yeah. Right.
Forever, ever,
And they're doing
ever.
a
For real
double.
this time, and they're doing.
They're going out. They're going out big.
Yeah, and then they'll have their 360 event too the rest of the week. But then that'll be it for the track. I'm pretty sure. So I know.
Is it sold? Just getting torn down?
Yeah,
or
that's what it sounds
basically,
like.
there's a contract basically that was been in the works for years now.
Yeah, that's why every year they go down there. It's like, this could be the last time.
But I guess it was like truly like the
Yeah.
contract was signed with this being the last year either way, and it's just finally happening.
Is it Copart? Is that who bought it? Copart,
something like Copart. Yeah.
like bought Grandview and then did my Grandview. Hey, you never know, right? Until they set the plows down, the excavators down. You never know.
Feel like they are definitely there. So
As much as people like love it and talking about the history and talking about blah 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 blah, it just kind of blows my mind that it's happening. You know what I mean? Like I understand some of these places that are just sort of foregone conclusions. They're kind of like, they're not top tier, they're not this, they're not that. They don't hold a special place for everybody nationally. This place is just nationally holds a place in everybody's heart about like being cool and they want to win there and how special it is, and it's just going to be gone.
I
Like
think that's just they're a victim of where they're located. I think just like Auto Club in California, the land's so valuable. It doesn't really matter what your history or what your standing is. You don't have enough of it if you're on that land. So I think we're lucky here that our tracks that are kind of the same way, they're special to us, special nationally. The land value hasn't gotten to enough to Williams Grove's going to sell out and become whatever. But
yeah, nobody wants to live here, so it's fine.
I
I'm good with that. But what else?
think
I think that's it.
Wednesday, 7 p.m. Blake Brooks, Roland Podcast. Tony Sharp and I back at it again, week 3, buddy.
3 weeks in a row.
Excited. That's a young guy too, right? Young guy.
Young guy. Excited to learn about what he's got going on and kind of just to learn about him in general. It's the fun thing for me. Tony knows these guys pretty well, but for me, knowing the division, but now putting faces with names and going down through what they're doing and what their goals are, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be an interesting one for sure. Sweet looking car. We'll do some promos this week, but the car was at Racing Extravaganza. It looked really cool.
Yeah, he's a young guy, and he runs with the wing and without.
14 years old is what
pretty cool
source says. So
yeah, hell, there might be track he's not even allowed to race at.
Check that out on Wednesday. And can we? I kind of let it slip before, but can we talk?
Well,
we know.
We know because Billy and I talked about it last night.
What do you mean you know? You and Bill? What are you talking about? We know. We of course we know. We're on the damn show.
So we know
next week
we're gonna do it.
Next week,
the 1 year anniversary,
making the return, 1 year anniversary of the Macho Man Billy Dietrich. Excited to have him back. I'm sure he's got some really, really good insight on a lot of the questions we've been asking here. A lot of these other drivers, I'm really excited to hear. And he's been in our comments here and there, giving his insight. But I'm excited to bring him back. He was a real good time last year. He's just a good time all around. And
I'm expecting an absolute rodeo next week, and I'm here for it.
And who knows what's going to happen this week in the state of sprint car racing that is going to be the topic. So it feels like it's almost weekly at this point. Some new topic to talk about. Justin Fiedler, man, he's got this shit figured out of doing a daily one because there's something that feels like every damn day lately. Even during the off season there was, and continued into beginning of the actual season. So yeah, who knows what'll come out this week or what to talk about. Who knows how East Bay ends here tomorrow, and we'll bring Billy on and come along for the ride because it will be a ride.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one.
Yep,
looking forward to it.
So
with that, we're gonna get out of here.
I guess that's it.
Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks Kyle Keen for joining us, especially on such late notice. We're gonna Dave ask about his Lucas Wolf cutout.
I did see a picture with him with a Lucas Wolf cutout.
We'll definitely ask him. Tune in next week, Billy Dietrich. Put your questions in the chat. It'll be a fun one. And for all of us, we will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.